Full review of the Rebel, let's go. Good morning, YouTube. What's up, everybody? I hope you're safe and healthy and happy and doing okay. It is no secret that my channel is in desperate need of a full review, and the funny part about it is that I have a bunch of shoes that are at the 50-mile mark. I just haven't gotten a chance to doing full reviews because I just have so many first run impressions that I could do, and those are kind of more fun for me. But I decided today that I am going to do a full review of a shoe that I have really been enjoying since I got it, and that is the New Balance Fuelcell Rebel V2. I've really beaten this shoe up. I have a lot of thoughts about it. I have a lot of feelings. And we're going to talk about all those today. We're going to talk about them very fast because I have less than an hour until my work shift starts. So with that being said, let's get to the run footage so we can talk all about my full review of the Rebel V2. Unfamiliar with how I structure my full reviews, let me give you a rundown. First, we're going to start with the specs, then we're going to talk about the upper, the midsole, the outsole, the pricing of the shoe, and then my conclusion. And in the conclusion is where I'm going to rate it out of 5 stars. So if it's the best shoe I've ever worn and I never want to take it off my foot, it's going to be 5 stars, although no shoe I've ever rated has been 5 stars yet. Though. Never know. And if it's the worst shoe I've ever worn and I can't wait to take it off my foot, it's gonna be 1 star. Then at the end, I'll throw up a screen with the pros and the cons so you can get a visual idea of what I liked and what I disliked. One more thing before we get started today, I do want to let you know that this shoe was sent to me by Running Warehouse and New Balance. However, neither company is going to see this before you. They can't tell me what to say, and all of my opinions, as always, are authentic to me and my own. So rewinding back to my first run impressions of the Rebel V2, and I was praising it for being very versatile, being a shoe that I thought a lot of people would enjoy, and just an all-around fantastic shoe. And I still think all of those things, but with a couple caveats, a couple of asterisks in there somewhere that make this a good shoe, but I don't know if it's going to be the shoe for everyone. So I just wanted to say that. If you want to see what I thought about the shoe after my first run or 2 in it, you can do so right here. I put the first run impressions video right there. The New Balance Rebel V2 comes in at 6.2 ounces for a women's size 8, but for my size 10.5, this shoe came in at 7.1 ounces, which is still incredibly light. It has a 6mm drop with 30mm of stack in the heel and 24 in the forefoot. Now, one of the things that I did want to point out that might differ slightly from my first run impressions is that I said that this shoe was true to size, although it just made it. It was just true to size. Any smaller and it would be too small. And I think I had said that I didn't need to size up, but perhaps I might have needed to in this shoe. Just a half size. Sometimes you need a little bit more time with the shoe to really be able to tell, and that's why we do these full reviews. The upper of the Rebel V2 is an engineered mesh. It's extremely lightweight and breathable through that forefoot. Definitely going to feel the air passing through. In that midfoot, we don't have a ton of overlays. You have that New Balance logo. And then in the orange portion of the upper, you have kind of like these lines that go through that are kind of threaded into the mesh. And I think that does help with some structure. Moving back to the heel counter, it is somewhat sturdy, not the sturdiest heel counter, but it did do a decent job of keeping my ankle locked in. Okay, so to talk about that sizing a little bit more. So like I said, I do think perhaps I could have benefited from a half size up, especially in the summer months, which I'm now using this shoe in, when your feet just swell. And then the little room you had becomes even less room. So that's something that I have noticed while running in the shoe after my first run impressions. And another thing is that, yes, it does have a decent amount of room in that forefoot, but what I have noticed about it is that it does get a little bit pointy, a little bit narrow here-ish. So while there's it's not terribly narrow and you can still fit in the shoe, I think that might annoy some people. And how I came to discover that is in the next percent that I was wearing. My third toe on my left foot starts to get a little bit irritated. You know, I'm blaming the next percent for the initial disturbance. But after wearing the Rebel a couple times, it didn't help. And now I have a black toenail, which is something you all want to avoid. It doesn't hurt, it's just annoying AF. But in that midfoot, I'll stand by what I previously said. I have a decent amount of room. I have a good lockdown there. And I think a lot of different foot types are going to be able to fit in that midfoot. You're just really going to want to put this on if you can and feel that forefoot out for yourself. But again, excellent breathability here. This is definitely a good summer shoe. In my first run impressions, I had said that the tongue area kind of annoyed me, and I'll sort of stick by that, although it started to annoy me less the more I wore the shoe and just kind of like blended in there. I do still wish it was gusseted, think it could only benefit, but what are you gonna do? All right, so moving down to the midsole area, we have New Balance's Fuelcell foam here. It's enhanced from previous versions of Fuelcell. And one of the things that I have thought about Fuelcell over the course of trying several shoes with it is that it kind of feels different in like every shoe. To describe the Fuelcell foam in the Rebel V2, if you haven't tried it yet, it is soft, it's fairly bouncy, and does carry a little bit of energy and response. Very, very enjoyable, pleasant experience to run in this shoe. I have done many different kinds of runs in these. I did mile repeats in the Rebel, and believe it or not, during this marathon training cycle, on my workout Wednesdays, I was wearing every single time a carbon plated shoe, other than the time that I wore this shoe, the Rebel. And I gotta be honest, I felt the best and my feet felt the best wearing the Rebel. Go figure. So I've done tempo days, I've done easy days, I've really done it all in this shoe, long mileage, and it's held up pretty fantastically for whatever I want to throw at it that day. That being said, I think this shoe has the ability to go long, but it's not gonna be the feeling that everybody wants under their foot for a long run. This is an extremely flexible shoe. I mean, I can literally fold it like this. The upper feels very minimal, and to some, it might feel a little bit minimal underfoot as well. Sure, this Fuelcell foam does provide you with a decent amount of protection, but what I have noticed on my longer runs in the shoe is that I did feel the foam start to flatten out just a little bit towards the end of my runs. So this is like a 10-mile run, an 8-mile run. Those I consider longer. It didn't necessarily lose the energy that it has, but that is kind of why I have not really considered this for the Chicago Marathon. I mean, you guys know I've looked at a lot of different shoes for that race, and this was in the running, but I just don't think it's gonna be for me. If you like that kind of feeling underfoot, then this might be exactly what you're looking for. But I think for me, a person who overpronates and needs a little more structure in their shoe, maybe a little bit more cushioning for those longer miles, this doesn't exactly do it. It does it for everything else. Literally, I would race a 5K in a shoe, I would do a tempo run, I would do daily training. I just don't think I would take it as long as marathon distance. Something else I've noticed that's not necessarily a good thing or a bad thing, I think it's just like a personal preference thing, I kind of am indifferent about it, is that your foot really feels like it's working and is connected to the shoe. A lot of times with these higher cushion shoes, like for example, the Bondi X that I ran in last week, your foot feels like it's like barely doing any work because there's just so much built up around it, kind of doing the work for you. Here, I think you're gonna feel a little bit more of that work. This is a shoe that since I've gotten it, I have not wanted to put down. I really love this shoe. And despite not being able to really run a marathon in it most likely, I still love it. I just love it for everything else. It does everything with such ease. And that's why I think this is a really versatile shoe. I don't think you could necessarily say that about the first version. I think that shoe really shined in the like tempo day area. And this does too. It's just also going to shine in other areas. I think the durability of the midsole has degraded slightly. Nothing too crazy, but like I mentioned, it does sort of feel a little bit flat in that forefoot in longer miles. And I think maybe it's lost just a teeny bit of that energy return since I've gotten it. I mean, I kind of expected it because this shoe is pretty minimal looking and it feels it sort of on foot. It just truly is such a fun shoe. And if you get a chance to give it a shot, I highly recommend doing so. All right, so if we turn the shoe over, you'll see that New Balance is using their endurance rubber here. We got quite a bit of it in the forefoot dipping into that lateral side of the midfoot. Then you got some on the medial side, some exposed Fuelcell in the middle, and some more endurance rubber in the heel. Judging by the looks of the shoe, which you can see, I am seeing quite a bit of wear in that forefoot area. The traction pattern has definitely taken a beating. The actual traction of the shoe on the roads has not suffered really at all. I haven't had any problems with it, but it does slightly concern me that it is looking so beat up at, you know, just like mile 50. So definitely something to keep an eye on. I'm not terribly surprised, but I do wish that it was like a little bit stronger looking at this point. The interesting thing is that the Fuelcell foam in my shoe, at least in that midfoot, that exposed stuff, really isn't worn down at all. I mean, it's fraying ever so slightly, but I mean, it's kind of holding up better than the rubber is. The New Balance Rebel V2 is $129.95 on runningwarehouse.com. Pretty decent price for this shoe. I'd love to see like a $119.95, but $130 is pretty reasonable for a shoe that can do it all, except for a marathon for some people. If you're interested in picking up a pair of the New Balance Fuelcell Rebel V2, you can do so at the link in the description of this video. Click that link and pick up your own pair. Keep in mind, this is an affiliate link with Running Warehouse. However, that doesn't mean much for you. It just helps out my channel so I can keep reviewing these shoes and hopefully helping you pick out a shoe that can do it all for you. I think this shoe is really fun. I've loved running in it. It feels really, really pleasant underfoot. It's exciting. It gets me excited to run in this, which I think is an important thing to have in a running shoe. And despite the fact that I don't think I can run a marathon in it, I think that some of you probably could. It's just up to personal preference. So because of that, I'm gonna give the Rebel V2 4 out of 5 stars. Honestly, I want to give this shoe more like a 3.7. 3.5 feels too low. 4 feels a little bit high. 3.7 is really more like it, but that's not really a thing. So we'll round up here and we'll give it 4. But I do think it's justified. I mean, a lot of people are going to enjoy this for their tempo days, for their daily training, and some of you will even like it for a long run. All right, so now let's throw up a screen with the pros and the cons. For pros, I have the upper material, the midsole feel, that the shoe is versatile, and that amount of versatility will vary from person to person, and that the shoe is just fun. It's a joy to run in. For cons, I have that the forefoot is a bit snug. The durability of the midsole and the outsole could be a problem. And it's not great for super long runs for me. And there you have it, Rebel V2. Have you run a marathon in this shoe? If you have, please let me know, because I want to know how it went. How did you do? How did it feel? I want to know all the details. This shoe is definitely one of my favorites of 2021, and it's crazy to say that 2021 is almost kind of over. But certainly when I think about favorite shoes from the year, this is in that list. Well, that concludes my full review of the New Balance Fuelcell Rebel V2. If you enjoyed this video, please like it down below and subscribe. And when you're done with all that, hit that notifications bell so you can find out every time I upload a new video. I will admit that I did actually just call her over. She didn't just come over on command like that, but you know. We have some more videos for you next week, but in the meantime, get out there, get on the grind, and don't forget to run like heller. See you next time. The camera's this way. Look this way. All right. We'll see you next time. What are you doing? Okay, can you sit?